Madam Speaker, we now know that the Premier's openness to a separatist referendum is all about one thing, holding on to her party leadership. It's not about demanding a better deal for Albertans. It's not about our economy and a better life for people. No, she said it herself, it's really about not splitting her political party. When it comes to Alberta separation, why is the Premier putting her political interests and her party ahead of what is best for all Albertans?
Hear, hear. The Honourable the Premier.
Mr. Speaker, nothing could be further from the truth.
We get to see the maple trees, maple sugar on the maple leaves. We get the biggest wheat fields growing tall. In Canada, where we see the reversing falls. In Canada, we get to see them all.
Good day, eh?
Well, ever since we elected our new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, most of us are breathing a big sigh of relief. Last week he had his first official visit to the White House, along with Ministers Dominic LeBlanc and Melanie Joly, ostensibly to discuss trade and tariff. Well, some thought he was too polite, or he shouldn't have gone at all, but I think it was, crucial that he go down there and for no reason other than to tell the maggot to his face that Canada's not for sale and will never be the 51st state. And I watched the way he studied him. He didn't take his eyes off him like he was some kind of a barking circus seal. At the first opportunity, he jumped in and he used just enough charm and to sort of give him a veneer of praise, just enough so that he made him laugh a little and chuckle, and the couch Gestapo couldn't attack him. So while the meeting accomplished nothing more than that, it was a formality. It had to happen. But here at home, some of the embers of the Maple MAGA are smoldering as wildfires begin in Alberta. Before the Conservative Party, the PCP had even announced Andrew Scheer for the interim leader, while Pierre's barely begun organizing his run for his seat in Parliament in Alberta. Premier Danielle Smith couldn't wait to get in front of a microphone to announce the revival of Bill 54, which would allow for a citizen-led referendum on any issue that receives enough petition signatures. Separation. Well, while she claims she supports a sovereign Alberta within a unified Canada, she apparently wants it both ways, and she'll use this threat of separatism as a negotiating tool with negotiations with Carney over her demands, which are many.
The world looks at us like we've lost our minds. We have the most abundant and accessible natural resources of any country on Earth, and yet we landlocked them, sell what we do produce to a single customer to the south of us, while enabling polluting dictatorships to eat our lunch.
Premier says her government will negotiate what she calls an Alberta Accord that will end all federal laws, she says, interfere with resource development. She also will chair a new Alberta Next panel, gathering feedback from Albertans, the most popular of which will likely be put to a provincial referendum in 2026. Smith says the government will not be putting forward a vote on separation. However, those wanting that option can go through the new citizen-led petition process to put that question to the public next year as well. All right, Don, we'll start with you. And a bit of ground to cover here, but negotiating an Alberta Accord.
So why is there all this talk about separatism? Who's really behind the separatist movement in Canada? Well, there's a few. There's the Alberta Republican Party, which is kind of new. There's the Independence Party. Take Back Alberta, TBA. Fergus doesn't like them either. He's chewing at me. Take Back Alberta Party, which started when a bunch of nut jobs formed the organization. They were kind of a Canadian political action committee, but they actively infiltrated the United Conservative Party by dominating town halls and seizing on the frustrations that began during the pandemic restrictions. And they were the real influence behind the UCP now.
the NDP, which is, they are a little bit more centrist, but at the same time, their roots are very much left. You have the UCP that tries to style itself as being somewhat of a little bit more center-right, but is not. And so what you have is this widening gap between the NDP and the UCP, and there is nothing in the middle. And I think this is a very difficult thing for Albertans.
Danielle Smith's former buddy, David Parker, is the head of this Take Back Alberta party, and he was the one that pushed to oust the former Premier Jason Kenney from the party for being insufficiently right-wing. Parker was part of the Coots blockade, where the militant anti-vaxxers blocked the Coots border crossing with Montana in solidarity with the so-called Freedom Convoy that took over Ottawa in late January and February of 2022. The RCMP raided trailers near the blockade where they seized weapons, ammo, and body armor. They also found patches associated with Diagolon, a militia movement that seeks to create a white ethno-state running in a diagonal line from northern British Columbia to Florida. Well, Danny and David were once personal friends, and she even attended his wedding in 2023. She's since tried to distance herself from him over some remarks and personal attacks he made against Pierre Poilievre on social media, but she hasn't distanced herself from the party. From the publication Everything GOP, they say Parker's group, which claims they have 30,000 members, has also taken over local constituency associations in several ridings or districts. One longtime conservative said that TBA's outsized presence in her local constituency association meeting felt like a coup, noting a palpable hostility in the air toward old guard members like herself. Parker's fear-mongered and pushed his spiritual warfare nonsense while demonizing immigrants and pushing white supremacy talking points and claiming Canada can't be saved because immigrants. I'm gonna tell you something, buddy. We had immigrants long before now.
There is no way that Canada can be saved. We have brought in so many immigrants and we have diluted our values to such a high degree that we don't even know what the nation of Canada is anymore. Go to Brampton, go to Surrey, go to Edmonton and Calgary right now. You will not recognize the place that you are in. We're not bringing in the world's best and brightest, folks. We did. Under Stephen Harper, I worked in his government. We had very high standards for bringing people in, and we were bringing in great immigrants who were contributing to our economy. We are now bringing in people who cost the Canadian taxpayer an average of $3,500 a month, which is more than our elderly get from OAS and CPP combined on average. We are right now a hotel for the world's welfare cases. Our productivity has not gone up in the last decade. That means we've brought in 4 million people and see no increase in productivity. But it gets worse. We haven't seen any GDP growth. I think it's over the last 10 years, 0.97. When you account for things like inflation and immigration, we have seen a decrease in our quality of life over the last decade, and it's only going to get worse. So do I think Canada can be saved? Absolutely not. Not only do I not think that it can be saved, I think that if we try to save it, it will be just like, those horrible, tragic stories where someone swims out to help their drowning friend and they both die together. It's time to leave. And if we don't get out now, then I suggest getting out, because you're not going to want to live in the place that this is going to become.
Parker once told a seminar of more than 100 adherents in Grand Prairie, I know, 100 adherents, that this is a war between the pro-humans and anti-humans, he said, referring to abortion and modern urban women's impulse to delay having children for their career's sake. And he said that the NDP and progressives want to depopulate society for the sake of the environment. You are the carbon they are trying to reduce. That Albertans have no option but to stop the NDP. You can vote your way into socialism, but you almost always have to shoot your way out. Good grief.
Only God can do it. Only God can do it. Only God can do it. Only God can do it.
This past February elections, Alberta fined TBA and Parker for more than $120,000 for political financing violations. The fines disclosed on the election agency's website are for more than a dozen violations of Alberta's election finance law, including circumventing spending limits, accepting contributions from outside Alberta and Canada, and knowingly making false statements in a financial report to the chief electoral officer. The agency does not release the reasons for its penalties or comment on them. It's no easy thing to secede from Canada. For one thing, it would go against our Constitution by violating the separation of powers among the executive, legislative, and judicial branches, and the division of powers between federal and provincial governments. According to the Tyee, the UCP government has demonstrated a passing familiarity and respect for these checks on its authority. At the outset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the UCP government stripped the legislature of its ability to review public health measures taken by the Minister of Health. They backtracked only after their own allies threatened to sue them. They went around the courts. The first draft of the UCP's Sovereignty Act would have stolen powers from the federal government, the Alberta legislature, and the courts, and granted them to the Premier. They walked some of it back after public backlash, but remain insistent that the provincial cabinet, not the Supreme Court, should determine the bounds of federal and provincial authority. Sounds familiar? When pressed by the leader of the opposition in the Alberta Parliament, Danielle stumbled and tried denying that she's bowing to the separatists within her own party.
Sounds like the member opposite just said exactly what I said, is that we do not want a permanent feature of Alberta politics to be parties that send representatives to Ottawa whose sole purpose is to break up the country, or brand new political parties whose sole purpose is to take this province out of confederation. That is not the mandate of the United Conservative Party. What we are working towards is a united Canada with respect for provincial constitutional sovereignty over our areas of jurisdiction. That is what we have been fighting for from the moment we got founded. That's what we've been fighting for through the legislation we've been putting forward, and it's what we're going to keep on fighting for.
The Leader of the Official Opposition.
The separatists the Premier is talking about are factions of her own party.
That's right.
And the action she is failing to take is to tell this faction of her own party that they are wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
She is coddling Alberta separatists, securing the endorsements of Quebec politicians who tried to block our pipelines, and failing to get good deals for Albertans. She's ripping up a century of treaty relationships with Indigenous people, all to hold on to her own divided party and political power.
Well, Alberta's not the only province that's talking about leaving Canada or separatism. Saskatchewan is also unhappy with trade barriers and pipeline restrictions, but there's still an opportunity for these provinces to adapt. There's still a large population of Alberta that doesn't want to leave Canada, but some adaptation to some of the regulations and barriers in trade interprovincially, and helping them to adapt to sustainable alternatives. There's other ways that we can improve the economy and trade without actually having to leave the country as a whole chunk. Other experts say the separatist movement is equally dumb and dangerous and immature, and sounds like something like Boris Johnson or Baron von Schützenpants would do. Oh, well, Ottawa needs to take the legitimate concerns of Western provinces seriously. I believe we're already making good progress interprovincial trade, as well as finding new trading partners overseas. And we've just come out of the other side of a snap federal election, and there's a new cabinet yet to be selected, and we're about to have their Royal Highnesses, Charles and Camilla, for the opening of Parliament, and the throne speech by His Majesty.
A historical royal visit to Canada. King Charles III and Queen Camilla making a stop in Ottawa on May 26th and May 27th. A historical royal visit to Canada. King Charles III and Queen Camilla making a stop in Ottawa on May 26th and May 27th. This will be the King's 20th visit to Canada and the Queen's 5th visit. But we asked Calgarians what they think of the upcoming royal visit, and if they remember the last time the royals made a stop in Canada, which was in 2022, when they visited St. John's, Newfoundland, Ottawa, and the Northwest Territories.
I thought that was interesting that Prime Minister Carney would invite King Charles to come and participate in the throne speech.
I don't know. Ever since they changed it to God Save the King, I've been off of the whole thing because it was the Queen my whole life, and I don't really understand the purpose of the monarchy aside from that. So, like, I'm not personally super excited, but I guess it's cool.
Willing to come to Canada?
No, you're asking an Irishman about the English royal family, so we don't have a good opinion of them.
Yeah. No, fair enough.
I think it's fair to say that most Canadians have no appetite for the needless expense and distraction of a referendum tantrum.
You're fucked, dude. I'm fucked.
Get over it. You lost.
Stay tuned for more on Political Drain Canadian Edition.
Follow us on all these things you see here, and our link tree is in the description. Maybe even get some merch.